Many climate impacts are increasingly becoming uninsurable even in rich countries. Think about flood insurance in the United States and increasingly wildfire insurance. And what about existential threats like sea level rise and desertification that are swallowing up lands where people live, many millions of people who will be displaced? What is insurance exactly going to do to deal with these kinds of impacts?
On Monday, November 14, 2022, the Global Shield Initiative was announced at the COP27 summit in Egypt. The Global Shield financing facility, coordinated by G7 President Germany, is established to provide rapid access to insurance and disaster protection funding. Pakistan, Ghana, and Bangladesh will be among the first recipients of the funding aimed at countries suffering climate disasters. But is this a replacement for loss and damage? And will it serve climate justice? This year at COP27, Pakistan and other climate-vulnerable countries demanded that the international community mobilize loss and damage funds for disaster-hit nations. Some say rich nations are responsible for paying these costs, as their historical emissions are the root cause of global warming today. As a response, Germany announced the GSFF in collaboration with the V20, a group of 58 climate-vulnerable economies. Germany has pitched in with an initial contribution of $200 million to the initiative at COP27. Ireland also committed $11.7 million and said, once exceptional events are now occurring with increased frequency and ferocity. Denmark and Canada too have pledged respectively $5.4 million and $7 million. US President Joe Biden has also backed the plan. Unlike loss and damage, whose funding is expected to stem exclusively from industrialized countries, the Berlin-led initiative would allow for so-called South-South cooperation, meaning that countries like China, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia could be among the potential donors. But hang on. Even if we sum up the pledged contributions, it is nowhere near the actual loss and damage costs. Initial estimates peg Pakistan's flood loss and damage this year at about $30 billion. Vanuatu's economic losses from the 2015 storm were estimated at $700 million. According to the Spain-based Basque Center for Climate Change, by 2030, developing countries would require $290 to $580 billion to cope with climate-related loss and damage. Civil society groups are thus skeptical. They warn that the program should not be used as a distraction from the much broader effort to get big polluters to pay for the loss and damage they have already caused with their emissions.
The V20 fund in particular is a valuable component, but again, the scale is completely off. Countries are putting money on the scale of millions, and the needs they have admitted are rising into the billions and trillions. We know loss and damage is here to stay, and the reason it's here to stay is because rich nations have not acted on mitigation and adaptation. That's why we're in an era of loss and damage. And it's going to be here for decades. We need an institution that's fit for purpose, and that is the Sharm el-Sheikh Loss and Damage Finance Facility, which we must secure at this COP27.